The bell above the diner door rang again, sharper this time, louder, and something in Lily's chest tightened before she even looked up, because instinct sometimes understands danger before the mind does, and when she raised her eyes from the counter her breath caught so hard it felt like it had been punched out of her. The man who had just stepped inside didn't belong in places like this. His tailored black suit alone cost more than the diner made in a month, his posture straight and unyielding like the world bent around him instead of the other way around, and behind him, filling the doorway like shadows given human shape, were two men in dark suits with cold, scanning eyes and the unmistakable presence of people trained to protect and to hurt without hesitation. The diner seemed to shrink around them, the chatter dying mid-sentence, forks pausing halfway to mouths, even the old radio crackling softly as if unsure it was allowed to make noise anymore. Lily froze. Her hands trembled, and she didn't need to look at Emily to know the girl had gone utterly still. She could feel it, the sudden absence of movement at the corner booth, the way the air itself seemed to thicken. Slowly, almost afraid of what she'd see, Lily turned her head, and there Emily was, her face drained of color, eyes wide and locked onto the man at the door, her small hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles had gone white. For the first time since Lily had known her, Emily didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't even blink. She looked like a child who had just seen a ghost walk back into her life wearing a human face. The man's eyes swept the diner once, calculating, dismissive, until they landed on Emily, and something flickered there. Not softness. Not warmth. Recognition. He took a step forward, and Emily flinched so visibly that Lily's heart shattered a little. Lily didn't know who he was yet, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty: this man was not supposed to be here, and whatever he represented, it had stolen something precious from the quiet girl sitting in her booth. Lily moved without thinking, stepping slightly in front of Emily's line of sight as if her body alone could shield the child from whatever storm had just walked in. "Good afternoon," Lily said, forcing her voice to stay steady, friendly, normal, because fear only feeds predators. "Can I help you?" The man's gaze shifted to her slowly, assessing, and Lily felt like an insect pinned under glass. "I'm here for my daughter," he said calmly, his voice smooth and controlled, the kind that never needed to be raised to command obedience. Daughter. The word echoed in Lily's head, clashing violently with everything she thought she knew. Emily had never once mentioned a father. Not in her drawings, not in her timid smiles, not in the long silences she carried like secrets. Lily glanced back at Emily, who had shrunk into herself, shoulders curling inward, eyes now fixed on the table as if looking up might make everything worse. "Emily?" Lily whispered, gently, a question wrapped in concern. Emily didn't answer. She didn't move. The man sighed faintly, irritation creeping into his composure, and gestured with two fingers. One of the bodyguards stepped forward just enough to make Lily's pulse spike. "She'll come with me," the man said, already turning slightly as if this was a foregone conclusion. Something snapped inside Lily then, not fear, but resolve. She planted her feet. "Sir," she said firmly, surprising even herself, "she's a regular here. She comes in every day. Alone. If you're her father, maybe you should explain why." The diner had gone completely silent now, every ear tuned in, every heart beating faster. The man's jaw tightened. For a moment Lily thought he might bark an order, have her removed, make this ugly, but instead, he smiled, thin and humorless. "This is not a conversation for public ears," he replied. "Emily, get up." At the sound of his voice saying her name, Emily's shoulders shook. Slowly, she slid out of the booth, her movements stiff, like a puppet with tangled strings. Lily crouched slightly, bringing herself down to Emily's level. "Hey," she said softly, her voice breaking despite her effort. "You're okay. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do." Emily finally looked up at her then, tears pooled in her eyes, and in that look Lily saw years of fear compressed into a single moment. "He'll be mad," Emily whispered, barely audible. The words gutted Lily. Mad. Not worried. Not happy to see her. Mad. Lily straightened, anger rising now, hot and fierce. Sir, she said, no longer hiding the steel in her voice, if you take one step closer without explaining yourself, I'm calling the police. The man studied her again, longer this time, as if she'd just become interesting. The bodyguards shifted subtly, hands near their sides, and Lily realized just how dangerous this situation truly was. Then, unexpectedly, the man raised a hand. Stand down, he said quietly to them. He exhaled, looking around the diner with thinly veiled annoyance. Very well, he said. You want an explanation? Fine. My name is Victor Hale. I am Emily's father. And I did not abandon her. His eyes flicked to Emily, something unreadable flashing through them. I protected her. Lily's heart pounded. Protected her from what? She asked. Victor's gaze hardened. From my world. The word settled heavily between them, ominous and vague. Emily shook her head, tears spilling now. You left me, she whispered, her voice cracking. Victor's expression faltered for the briefest second, a crack in the armor. I sent you somewhere safe, he said, softer now. I watched from a distance. Lily clenched her fists. You watched while she came here every day alone? While she sat in that booth waiting for someone who never showed up? The accusation hung in the air. Victor didn't answer immediately.